My name is Ralph Schmidt, and I was drafted into the Army in January 1944. And I left at Fort Snelling, Minnesota, and I left for Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri in March, and I took combat engineer training at Fort Leonard Wood. Then a couple of months later we finished basic, and I was sent out to, I had a delay en route, which you know is, you get a little vacation on your way out. Anyway, I went out to Pennsylvania. The whole outfit went out there. And at Pennsylvania they split us up. Half of them went to Europe. The other half of us, which I was very fortunate, went out to Fort Lewis, Washington for more training in construction, I guess. I don't know what, but anyway, the boys that went to Europe wound up in the Battle of the Bulge. So I had two blessings. I didn't get over there then. So we stayed out in Fort Lewis for, I don't know, 2 or 3 months. And then they shipped us out to New Jersey, Camp Reynolds, I think it was. And from there, we went to port of embarkation, and we went overseas on a troop ship. It was named Erickson. And one little highlight, that troop ship was torpedoed on the way back to New York. So I lucked out again.
Where did the ship go? Where was the ship going to?
When we went over France.
It was going to France. So
Yeah.
you were on your way to France.
Yep.
So you ended up in France?
Yep. Yes, we did, France. And we stayed there at, they had all the camps in France named after cigarettes.
Huh.
And ours was Camp 20 Grand. So we stayed there for a couple of weeks or so, I don't remember. And then we formed a convoy and went through France, Luxembourg, up into Germany.
And what year was this in?
This was in 1944, April, I think, in 44, just before the war ended. Always say that's what caused the war to end. I wound up overseas and then they ended it. No, really, we didn't accomplish much of anything. We went to there, and our first job was we used German prisoners and build a prison camp, using them for labor. We would check out 20 prisoners every morning and bring them back every night to where they were staying. Well, we didn't stay there too long, and then they decided to send us to the Philippine Islands. So we convoyed down to Marseille, France, and went to the Calais staging area, and there we boarded a ship. It was a big one, Admiral C.F. Hughes. It was 5,000 troops on that ship that went to the Philippines, and the crew was 500. So we went right to the Philippines through the Panama Canal, which was an experience. And we landed in Manila the end of around July. And we stayed at Nichols Field. We bivouacked on the side of the field there. And we had the joy or pleasure, I don't know what you'd call it, of seeing the Japanese envoys and the American envoys come in to try to negotiate a peace. We never got to see them, but we was off on the side. So then we left there and we went up, well, we went a couple places and we wound up at White Beach in the Philippines. And there the war was over by that time. So there we was loaded onto LSTs and sent to Japan as occupation forces. Well, that took, LST is not a very fast boat, but we got up there in a couple of weeks, and we landed at Nagoya.
Landed where?
Nagoya, Japan, and we didn't do much of anything there either, of course, occupation forces, but I will say that the Japanese people, they were very, very respectful and very helpful. I mean, when I went in there, I, felt like most Americans, I guess. I hated them, but then through my religion and so forth, I decided that these people couldn't help it. They had no control over it. They'd done what they were told. So we got along good. We couldn't speak their language. We had phrase books to use. It never done much good. It was easier just to make sign language of one kind or another. So anyway, we stayed there until we was 2 or 3 different places. And
what was your job?
we joined a construction company then, and then they made me a plumber. I never handled a pipe wrench in my life before, but I was a plumber. I think part of the reason was they wanted to give me a advancement, and so I became a corporal T5. Otherwise I couldn't have done it. I had to have a specialty, so otherwise in the Army they had me as a truck driver, and I never drove a truck all the while I was in there. But that's the way the Army goes. But we went to 2 or 3 different places in Japan, and our biggest job, plumbing, was to plumb the places where the officers stayed, in some of the hotels or what have you, see, that weren't damaged too bad. So that was the most plumbing we did, was plumbing for the officers. So we stayed in an old defense plant. We put our tents up in there, and that's where we lived. But anyway, then it must have been April, they was rotating and going home. So then we went over to Kobe, Japan, and there you waited until your number come up, and then you got to go home. So we arrived out in Seattle April sometime, and then we got a troop train from there to Camp McCoy, Wisconsin, which I had got my discharge papers, and I was home in April. Glad to be there. I wanted to say that I only spent 27 months in the service. I traveled to both theaters of operation. I was occupation in both countries. And I thank the good Lord for bringing me back.
Now,
I never fired a shot. I never was shot at. But I was in the service.
when you were in Japan, were you able to walk around and see some of the sights? Or?
Oh yeah. I was fortunate there. I had a rest leave. They give you a rest leave every so often. And I had what they called a rest leave, and they took us up to Kyoto, Japan, which was declared an open city during the war. It was never a bomb fell on it. The streetcars were running, and one evening we went to a big cinema, and there must have been 25,000 Japanese in there. And we walked in, no place to sit. So the usher says, go down this aisle. We went down that aisle. The Japanese scattered out. There wasn't anybody within 10, 12 feet of us. But before the play was over, they had all gathered back in again. They was more scared of us than we was of them, I think. But they did recommend that you never walk away or walk around with less than 2 or 3 people together.
This was a playhouse or a movie house?
It was a playhouse. It was all
Must have been awfully,
live, you know.
must have been pretty big.
It was tremendous. I never seen so many people.
Wow.
But I couldn't understand it.
Yeah.
But it was very enjoyable, really, you know.
Now, was it customary to applaud at the end of the play, or they didn't do that?
I don't even remember.
Okay.
I think they did, but I don't remember.
Now, did you go anyplace else in Japan while you were part of the occupation force?
Well, we went to, we came in at Nagoya, and let's see, Kobe, of course, we left there. I should remember this, but I don't.
Anything else that was unusual for you while you were part of the occupation force? Did people ever come up to you to try to talk to you, or
no,
they kept away?
But you know, they had an awful black market over there. When I was up in Kyoto, a guy wanted to buy my watch. I had just bought it at the PX. I don't know, I paid $16, $17 for it from the Army PX when I was up there. So he wanted to buy it, and I got the equivalent in yens of $125 for it. So,
how about the children? Did they? Because they don't know what's going on.
Yeah, the children, of course, they was very friendly. They wanted chocolatey and stuff like that, you know. They had a regular, where we was in Nagoya, they had a regular building. You could bring in anything the Army made, or anything you bought, and you could sell it to them. And, well, shortly after I had been in there, I sold cigarettes like a dummy. But after I'd been in there, we heard it had been police had come in. And that building was good sized. It was, I don't know, it was just like a store. They had Lucky Strike, Camel cigarettes, all cigarettes in the place, and other stuff here and there. And they didn't find a thing in that. They didn't have 10 minutes to move that whole works out of there. I don't know how they done it, but they never arrested anybody.
Now, were the police officers then allowed to carry a firearm?
Oh yeah, we carried arms all the time.
I mean, the Japanese police officers?
Not that I know of, no. I've never seen any.
Okay. But you were allowed to carry your sidearm or rifle or whatever?
And we had ammunition for a change.
Well, was there anybody from Japan of Japanese descent that harassed you while you were part of the occupation force?
No way. They
couldn't blame them if they did.
They treated us with, I think they were so scared too that they did not want too much to do with you. You could go any place you wanted to. It didn't make any difference. And they would give way before you. And I don't know whether it was respect or fear. But they knew they were the enemy and we were the conquerors.
How much time did you spend in Japan?
2 months.
A couple of months, maybe?
Yeah. Let's see now. I can tell you in a minute here. Oh, I don't know. Went over there in October and left again in April.
Oh, okay, that's quite a while.
It was about 4 months then, I suppose.
So the whole duration of your time in Japan was a pleasant experience?
Were they what?
It was a pleasant experience for you?
Well, it was, yes, except for being away from home.
Yeah,
But, yes,
oh sure.
That's right.
Did you ever make a close relationship or a friend in Japan while you were there?
No.
Okay.
We did, I would say we did have a place what done our laundry for us. We could get our laundry done, but it was just to bring your laundry back. And
So you never made any personal friendships with any of the Japanese people?
No, I didn't. I was at one time invited to sit down with them in their home. Of course, you had to take off your shoes, and they all sat or knelt, and they sat around and tried to talk, and we tried to talk, and did a lot of laughing, but that was all. I don't know what their name was.
Well, we're going to take a look at some of the photographs and some of your medals, and you can explain what's going on, and we'll do that next.
Okay, you want me to bring them over here?
I'm looking at your medals. Now, would you take time to explain to me what they are?
Well, this first one here is for being in the service in American theater. In other words, your basic training and so forth. This one here is a good conduct medal. A lot of people wonder why I ever got that. And this one here is a European African medal, and I happen to be over there after one major battle, so that's why there's a star on it. I didn't partake in that battle, no.
And down below, this ribbon here?
This one I don't know.
Okay.
But this is Asiatic Pacific. In other words, South Pacific, Japan, all through there, because I served over there. And now this one is the occupation, no.
World War II.
World War II medal. Everybody got that, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
this one over here is the occupation, Japan and Germany. This happens to be the German inscription on the back. There's a picture of the Mount Fuji on the Japan. Okay, this photo is when the Japanese and the American envoys came into the Philippine Islands and negotiated for a peace treaty. This is not the peace treaty itself, because that was signed off the coast of Japan.
Was this taken before or after the nuclear bomb? Was it? Did they try to get a peace treaty before the nuclear bomb or afterwards?
I think this was afterwards, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Because it was just before we went. Well, I don't know.
Okay.
Well, here's the airplane that the American envoys or negotiators came in at that air base where we was living at or staying at.
Where were you? In Japan then, or Philippines?
No, this is the Philippines at Manila.
Okay.
This is a picture of a Japanese plane that they came into Nichols Field in Manila to negotiate a peace. That there picture is of all they're like small mountains. This is along the Rhine River in Germany, and then the walls there are all grapevines, or where they terrace these mountains all, and but them were mostly all grapevines there. This is taken in one of the chow lines we had over in France.
And this photograph here, which is a bombed out city in Japan, do you happen to know where it is?
I don't.
Okay.
It's out of Manila at the Nichols Air Force Base when we was camped along the field there, and our company clerk took that picture.
Do you know what kind of plane it was?
I don't know.
Okay. This building is, do you remember what city it's in Japan?
Nagoya, I think.
And this is where you stayed?
Yep.
A whole company on there, and they also...
I would say there would be probably a couple hundred troops in there. That's what a company usually composed of.
Okay, when the mess hall was in there, all the food was served?
Yes.
And you got your assignments each day when you were in there.
Each day they told you where you were supposed to go or what you were supposed to do, you know.
Okay. Now, where did this German metal come from? Do you remember?
I picked it up in some place over in Germany, probably one of the houses we stayed at or something like that.
Looks like maybe an infantryman's.
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me.
Now that to me, this patch looks like it's a tech sergeant.
No, it's corporal.
That's corporal?
T5. 2 stripes is corporal, 3 is sergeant. Staff sergeant is 4, 1 a rocker and 3 up above. And
what does the T stand for?
technician.
Okay.
And that's why it says T5. This is technician 5th grade, which is a corporal. Corporal, but it's technician. I suppose I got that because I was a plumber. That's why the T is on there.
Explain this money to me.
Well, this here bill was made by the Japanese government for when they invaded the United States, because it says $5 on it. Because they used the yen.